Okay, welcome guys. Trans Talk episode 1. We at Vero's, 52 kilometers in the Trans Baviaans Race. We under a tree here, sitting on the stoep of Vero's restaurant and having some coffee and some roaster cook. Roaster cook's quite fitting, Harold.
It is, yeah, and I think a lot of people appreciate it in the race as well.
Yeah, Vickers, tell us a bit more. We're in episode 1 of this podcast show. Tell us a bit more about how this whole story came about, the Trans Baviaans, as people know it.
Yeah, well, Trans Baviaans was an idea that was brewing for quite a while. And at that stage, we didn't really know how to present an event in the Baviaanskloof because it's such a huge distance and area and very remote. So we were contemplating an in and out sort of race. We couldn't figure out the logistics around that. And so for about 7 years, the idea toiled with me. And eventually one day, about 2003, I decided to just take a ride. A friend and myself started cycling from Willowmore, and we said, let's see how far we get. And that's how it started. So we that first year we ended up in Cape St. Francis, but of course that last section between Humansdorp and Cape St. Francis wasn't very nice. So we decided now we need a different finish venue, so we looked at Jeffreys Bay.
Yeah.
And well, and that's where the whole idea of the 24 hours and no route markings sort of started. And from the first event in 2004, that's how we presented it, and that was the route.
Yeah, and I think I want to bring in Harold just now on 2004, but I also just want to paint the picture a bit more for our listeners and people that's not watching the video on YouTube. We're at Vero's restaurant, so the kids in the background, we're not going to cancel them out, and we've got some lovely wind chimes just above us that are adding some acoustics to our atmosphere here at Vero's. Harold, 2004, that was you did the very first Trans Baviaans.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure what possessed us at the time, but I mean, at that stage we had backup vehicles following us through the race, so there were checkpoints, but there were no real checkpoints like there are today, where you get supplied with your food and you have one of the checkpoints right here at Vero's. So it was, I think, a lot different at that time, obviously a lot smaller fields, and people really going into an event not knowing much about it and not knowing what to expect, how to pack, what to pack, just hoping that whatever they took was going to be enough. And in most cases it was. I think a lot of people came over prepared, but in other cases obviously not. But these days we're helping everyone out, we're talking about it, we're giving out a lot of information, we're not keeping that secret on what to do, what to bring, how to prepare for an event like that. So I think a lot has changed since 2004, but it was an interesting race, weather-wise and a lot of other aspects.
Yeah, and I think, Vickers, you hosted the first event in 2004, and then it took you how many years before you did the first official race where you rode it? It was in 2018. 2018.
I did the ride. Well, it's 14 years.
14 years. I think I need to have a turn again to ride.
Well, you've done it, but I've
done it twice.
There's one of the 2004 bikes behind Harold there.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get into planning for this race. So we're at the first checkpoint, 52 k's. We've been saying that. Harold, let's talk a bit about training and prepping to get here.
Yeah, as we mentioned in the intro, 230 odd kilometers, maybe a little bit short of that, to 227, depending on which route you take, but hopefully you'll take the direct route. But nonetheless, a long race, long event. The winners anywhere from 8 hours, 9 hours to up to 24 hours. So preparation is key. I think as we said before, to enjoy it, to really enjoy the event, I think be prepared as possible. And one part of that preparation is obviously your training. And for that, a structured training program doesn't have to be a detailed, but a really structured build-up in your training load steadily over time before the event, and give yourself enough time to train for an event like this, so you can really appreciate the area you're going through, the ethos of the race, and what it's all about. I think that's really important, and that's why we have set up training planners to help riders if they do need help, maybe don't have their own coaches. They can follow a very basic plan that just focuses on hours per week.
Yeah.
And really builds up steadily over time. You have the option of choosing a 12-week plan or a 16-week plan. I think if I did the dates correctly, you would start your 16-week plan about the end of April, 24th of April.
Okay.
If you're following a 12-week plan, you start about the 22nd of May. But we do assume that you have been doing some riding up till that point. You're not a total novice.
Not a couch potato.
Exactly. And then you also want to look at, how many hours do you want to build up to? And the plan is centered around what we call a peak week.
Mm-hmm.
So you put in the maximum amount of hours that you have available to train. But obviously, with a race of this nature, we do recommend there is sort of a minimum that you want to look at. And typically, I would suggest anything from 12 to 15 hours as your peak week. So what that essentially means, that's what you build up to. You don't start at 12 or 15 hours, you steadily build up to that. And then closer to the race, you obviously drop the training load again so that your body can recover, adapt, get stronger. And those training plans are available on the Trans Baviaans website for download, Excel spreadsheets, and you put in your details and you'll get an idea of how many hours a week you should be targeting. And then we'll obviously also talk about intensity zones that you should typically look at a later stage. But what I encourage everyone to do is try and focus first and foremost on the hours that you are training in the week, and try and target those, and the load will steadily go up so that you are prepared for an event of this length, of this nature.
Yeah, and those training planners are really simple to use. They're Excel spreadsheet. Harold's color coded them where you slot in your hours that you need to put in that you want to do, and it's all, like you say, centralized around the peak week, and you just download them, punch it in, and see. It's always a good gauge as well. I think life gets busy and people get distracted with all the other things in life, and it is always tough to manage. But what I've always seen when I've used those training planners is just that you try and look at as a reference. So you say you should be doing 6 hours this week, and don't go and do nothing and then hit Sunday and think, okay, now I need to just go for 6 hours and I've ticked that box and move on. You need to you need to spread that load throughout the week. And I think the other important aspect to remember is that we have 2 weeks of build up, so 2 weeks where the time increases, in the third week, which is a recovery week, allowing the body to adapt, to recover before you carry on. And the common mistake unfortunately made in training is just to increase steadily all the way to race day, and then you arrive fatigued or possibly even overtrained on the start line, which is also not the idea. So it's a steady graded build-up with some really basic training principles, and we'll obviously discuss a lot more of that in some later episodes. In a later stage, And okay, guys, from my side, I just want to talk about, so you've done the prep and you arrive at Willamore. This is where the registration takes place and where the event starts for most of us. So at registration. So the first thing in registration, it's quite a lengthy thing. You get in there, there's a lot of information being given to you from the people behind the counter, and it's always important to just, if you don't listen to them, because that we know happens as well, you don't listen to what they say, is to just read the information in that box that we give you. And we'll discuss those crates, the boxes, in more detail later on. But I just want to run through the process and things that you're going to be getting at registration. So at registration, the most important thing is actually not the token, because they don't get it. They get it at the start line. But you get your maps, and you get your race numbers and all of those information at your registration pack. And the maps, the route's not marked, so this map is a very simple and easy thing to use. and we also go through that a bit more in detail, and you get this whole race pack at registration, and then you move on to the start of the race. And a lot of people at registration ask us whether they didn't receive this token, and they only get it in the start chute, so because you lose it before you actually start the race. And we've learned over the years that we actually just give it to the guys in the start chute. And then this token, except for here at Vero's at checkpoint 1, you won't be getting a sticker, but from checkpoint 2 onwards you go through the route, and you will be getting a sticker at every checkpoint, and you need to present this at the finish to prove that you've gone through the route. The start, we can happily announce, will be back at 10 o'clock in the morning at Willamore. Back to normal start, big bunch start, hopefully a good vibe and atmosphere like we've been knowing it for the last 17 years, with the exception of the last 2 years where we did the rolling start. 10 o'clock, the sharp end of the field will be seated in the front of the batch, and then everybody goes off at 10. That is pretty much the start setup and the registration setup. We've got registration briefing and everything also pre to the race, where we go into more detail about the route, that specific time, what the condition of the road is, and all of those things. A little extra thing that we brought in this year, and a lot of you would have noticed that when entering we've gone with these NB mounts, which are very cool little mounts that just are for your race number board, and they're a silicone based mount that just goes onto your race number board. And I think an initiative, Vickers, you can maybe tell us a bit about how many cable ties do we buy in a year?
22,000. It's about what was it, 8,000 rands worth of cable ties?
Close to 10,000 rand worth of cable ties that we spend every year, and these are really good to show us that we to reduce our waste. So we always try and look at things of what we can do to reduce waste, and the thing is, all those cable ties get clipped off down at J-Bay close to the beach. We obviously throw them away, but this is a nice initiative, and I think the first couple went at $100 on the website, and it really works well, and it's something you can keep on your bike for the whole year.
Yeah, they're reusable. I think that's the big thing. Yeah,
exactly. You can literally, if you're part of a club or something, you can have them on there, and they last for the full year or even longer as a race number board system.
And I think that also the other big advantage is it pushes the number board further off the handlebar,
yes,
to allow your bike computer or training computer, whatever you're going to use on your handlebars, to fit in nicely and not be impacted by the number board.
Cool. I think that is that for this episode. Is there anything else you guys want to say?
No, I think we just need to mention we start from the showgrounds again.
We are starting from the showground, so it's those of you that did it last year, you would have known where that is. It's just outside of town. It's inside of town, but it's just around the corner from where it was. But we'll clearly show signpost all of that. But we're starting at the showgrounds, 10 o'clock in Willamore on the 12th of August and the 19th of August next year or this year. Well, I need to have that rooster cook now. It's quite cold. I haven't had mine. You guys had yours.
Yeah, already. Yeah.
Cool. All right. See you in the next episode, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.